And welcome to the Self-Aware Entrepreneur Show. It's Wednesday, middle of the week, and looking for a pickup? It's right here waiting for you today. So joining me today is Sallee Poinsette-Nash, and Sallee is the founder of Brandable & Co. And that gives you a pretty good idea what she does, right? But I think that only really just shows you the surface. I mean, she is a brand strategy masterclass extraordinaire. Let's just say that. But she's actually worked in branding and on strategies to get, companies out there. That was what she used to do. She used to work with celebrities. She used to create those stories which drew people in and helped people to become the brands they are today. And she, was in a high-performing career. She was right up there. But like so many people who listen in and tune in, have had that moment where they've realized my work identity and me as a human being are starting to drift apart. How do we bring that back together? And instead of just revolutionizing herself and moving off to some other career or flying off to the other side of the world, which she has done, but she's come back, the beauty is that she's actually thought, I can use all these skills that I've got to actually help people, help humans be more human, bring that human forward, brand that human authentically, and be able to shout that out to the world. So, it's absolutely amazing to have her on. I've been desperately waiting to speak to her. And today, here we go. Sallee, great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here, Lee, but desperation is never a good look.
Well, it's kind of that part between desperation to get you on and knowing that the inspiration's there. And I'm desperate for inspiration sometimes. There's a beautiful link between those two things. But Sallee, I've given you a bit of an introduction, but I've not done you justice. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to recently.
So as you mentioned, I'm the founder of Brandable & Co. And it's a business I set up 3 years ago this October. I used to do similar work. The methodology, it's kind of the same, but working with everyday people in careers, in leadership roles, in freelancer roles as founders, and building a brand strategy that gets people further, faster. I'm a fan of efficiency and I'm a fan of simplicity. And by applying certain thinking at points of the journey and building a strategy around your career, it's probably the only aspect of your career you're in complete control of.
Yeah.
You build a brand and you put this stuff in your shop window, and within your brand shop, you're selling your skills, your services, your expertise. You can control what you put out there. You cannot control how it's perceived, it's received, and I just don't believe it needs to be hard work.
Yeah.
Never been a fan of the hard work. Don't get me wrong, I work a lot, but the hard work thing, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that no one really ever teaches us. There's no school education of how do you showcase your skills and how do you kind of express yourself to the world. A lot of that kind of stuff's missing. So we come out into the world and we get like our identity affixed as this position. And, so often we kind of navigate, these career pathways that we've set for ourselves in our minds. And on the way, we're kind of leaving like parts of our humanity on that pathway. And at some point, our life kind of calls us to actually, I've got to travel all the way back and pick them back up. I've lost myself on this journey. So kind of tell us a little bit about, did that happen to you? And did that become, the fuel to create Brandable?
Yeah, I think, so often we kind of created our career path at 15, 16 years old with a careers advisor. And, set ourselves off on this track and not stopped at any given moment unless something shows up like a burnout, which forces you to stop in some way.
Yeah.
There's life, there's the doorbell, there's the dog. But, when do you stop and you think, is this a match for who I am right now? For me, it was very much physical, symptoms, things going physically wrong because I was forcing myself to continue a career that worked really well for me. when I was younger, but as I evolved, as I changed, as I became more, I suppose, sensitive, recognized that I was actually an introvert, stopped forcing this stuff, I wasn't well off the back of it. And it gave me that moment to reflect, which I think it happens to so many people. Physically you're stopped in your tracks. And rather than get to that point again, why not do something about it for myself, for others?
Yeah, so I mean, the body's such an amazing feedback loop, and so often we continue to push it until the point where adversity hits us and we're forced to listen. But obviously, in that journey for you, you're incredibly skilled at what you do, and that can mean that at times it does just feel seamless. And like you said, it does. If it doesn't feel like hard work, sometimes it doesn't actually feel like it's taking that kind of toll on you in the same way. And it's actually easy to, I suppose, endure some of those aspects for longer than is probably healthy when you're actually very focused on efficiency and making processes simpler and, being able to kind of shorten those. But at the same time, that can actually be a little bit of a detriment. I mean, what do you think about that?
Massive detriment. I was raised in a lot of physical abuse. And my life dealing with the trauma is still happening at 43 years old on Saturday. It's still happening years later. I'm still doing the work, and I wouldn't change anything I went through because it's made me the person I am today.
Yeah.
But probably what I would change is, this mentality of I can endure it. I can endure it. The endurance is not necessarily a positive.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't have to endure, but you almost get caught in your own loop of, I'll prove that I can endure it.
Yeah.
Really not helpful.
Yeah, and I think that, I suppose, in the world that we live in today, endurance and resilience are quite often kind of knitted together. But I mean, like I've kind of really started to expand on in this last 6 months, resilience is a lot more than just the endurance. And actually, resilience is it's a bit of an art form. It's the ability to see when endurance is becoming detrimental and actually using your vulnerability and sensitivity to be able to, become really human about that and know actually endurance starts to hurt us after a certain point. And being able to kind of listen to ourselves. So obviously, Brandable is really founded around this like human aspect, really being kind of people first and human orientated. And what parts of your journey did you really start to shine a light on that for yourself?
I mean, I was the last to build a brand. Because it's like the builder that doesn't finish their own home. But also, I hid behind, I'm so busy doing this for other people. Yeah. But actually, I was terrified of being visible. And it's kind of ironic. I'm 6'2". At this height, I'm tall, and I wear heels, and then normally there's a messy bun up top.
Yeah.
Pushing me to about 6'9". But as an introvert, I don't want people looking at me. I don't want people staring at me. Physically being built like this, it naturally happens.
Yeah.
There's only so long I can tell myself I'm too busy doing other stuff to do this before I have to face up to clearly there's a lot of resistance and start to look at, well, why the resistance? I suppose one aspect was, I don't want my family necessarily seeing what I'm up to. I've managed to separate and move away from that chapter of my life. Why does anyone care what I have to say, which comes up a lot for a lot of people. And I think, your collection of stories, your collection of character, your collection of life experiences, that mix, that differentiates you from every single one of the 7 billion plus people who live on the planet today.
Yeah.
And that's worth showcasing. I was running a Stop Underselling Yourself session this morning, and I could ask over 100 people to do the same thing. Not one of them would do it in the same way, and that's the interesting bit. So I kind of had to practice what I preached. And it was really difficult and challenging, but I did it. And these days I went at my own pace.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous at the beginning, ridiculous. I mean, I had three friends over to support me putting my first tweet out into the world. Another level, but not the version people see. It's like, oh, so visible. It was an anonymous tweet to an anonymous Twitter account with a quote overlaid on a fashion image.
Yeah.
It sent me into meltdown. But I think you've got to go easy on yourself. You've got to take things at your own pace, but also doing things strategically will get you where you want to go in the easiest possible way. And life's hard enough, careers are hard enough, the confidence element is hard enough without you making it harder by not applying. If you were building a business, you'd apply strategy.
Yeah.
You would scale it, you'd go along these milestones. Why are we not doing that in our careers? And why are we keeping ourselves hidden beneath this facade of professional?
Yeah.
Where did professional get misinterpreted? Nobody said that professional means you can't be yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's such a good point. And it's like, I mean, I've only recently been speaking myself about how, from a leadership perspective, leaders apply strategy. And, from a financial perspective, they're looking at, profit and loss balance sheets. They're looking at KPIs. And actually sometimes strip it back and say, look, how about your human balance sheet? Yeah. How about your human KPIs? How about you apply some human strategy? All these skills that you use in your business can be used to incredible effect in your own life. And you use those skills every day. And it's like, sometimes it just seems like I'm, preaching to the people who are not willing to be converted to what they already do. But one thing I really like, Sallee, is this idea around you as a human being, your skills, your strengths, your experiences, like being a shop front. And so many of us, unfortunately, have an empty shop front. We have nothing in the window. And it's one of those things where obviously you really help people to start to think about what to put in the window. But can you also kind of elaborate on how you help people do that without them becoming this 10 out of 10 and constantly turning the little jars of jam on the shop window to be perfect and spend all the time doing that?
Yeah, I think knowing what's currently, with any good strategy, you need to know where you're starting from and where you're heading to.
Yeah,
I would always push where people are heading to, because sometimes they'll set those life and career goals based on their current limitations.
Yeah.
And the limited thinking, because it's like, well, let's just go for this, because, that feels a bit braggy. Yeah. But actually, we may as well just go for what we want to go for and work down rather than start at the bottom and work up. Knowing where you're positioned today and then knowing where you want to go gives you this space to work within, which is really useful. And when it comes to positioning yourself, it's about positioning. If you position yourself, I describe it as a ruler, and it's the 1 centimeter rule. So today you're at 0, you've got 30 centimeters on the other end. If you're positioning yourself at 0, nothing can meet you. Always position yourself 1 centimeter ahead of where you are. And I often use the example about being an author on 30 centimeters. Well, why be an author when you can be a best-selling author? Let's go for that. But today you've written nothing. What does that 1 centimeter ahead look like? 1 centimeter ahead looks like you saying to me, Sallee, what did you do at the weekend? I'd be like, Lee, I was thinking about this book that I'm going to write. Mm-hmm. And I also did this and this and this. I'm seeding it into conversation. I've still written nothing. Yeah. But now whoever I've spoken to, whether that's on social media as a post which says, does anyone in my network know published authors? Yeah. I'm going to be writing a book and I'd love to connect with people who have done it already. No one may know anyone, but everyone that saw the post is now connecting author and you. Yeah. When you position yourself like that, people can see articles, they can see workshops, they can see submissions are open with different publishers. They can forward you that information. Yeah. Because they know where you're going. So when it comes to your shop window, thinking about keeping it up to date, we don't need 5 years ago in terms of aesthetic, but also sprinkling some of this 1 centimetre ahead, so that it's like, okay, I'm not there yet. This 1 centimetre holds you accountable. I can only say to you 3-4 times, I was thinking about writing this book before you start to discount anything I have to say.
Yeah.
But still thinking about it. Well done, bravo, good weekend.
Yeah, and that's powerful, isn't it? Because there's an intention being set there.
Yeah, and you're not, if you try and do 5 centimetres, you feel like you're lying, because you are.
Yeah.
But that 1 centimetre, you can be thinking about many things. It allows people to start to send those opportunities your way, to meet you where you're going rather than meet you exactly where you are right now.
Yeah. And that's really powerful, because when they kind of looked at the science about stepping outside of our comfort zone to, take on these new challenges, stepping outside by 4% is the kind of, the level where we feel still able to be comfortable taking on those challenges and not feel panicked. And that is literally the 1 centimetre. And that's really powerful as well, because then once you've, expressed that, like you say, those people in your support network will start to almost scan the horizon for things that could, help you, support you, assist you, and they'll keep you accountable as well, because next time they see you, they'll be asking the questions.
Yeah.
Suddenly. And those associations.
The book you're not writing.
Well, exactly. And it's like you said, the biggest thing there is the association element, where all of a sudden they start to see, my friend, book, author, and it's like everything, people start to just slot in those little jigsaw pieces of other people's perceptions, because sometimes it's other people's perceptions that can really help propel you in the direction when you're starting to almost lose your own vision. They can course correct you a little bit, just a little nudge every now and again. So yeah, I mean, that's great advice, and I'd definitely recommend people to consider that.
There's that, and also with with your shop window, with this Stop Underselling Yourself initiative that I'm pushing this year, selling is nothing more than enthusiasm, passion, things that matter to you. If you show up super enthusiastic about something, even if someone's not into it, they're going to feel that. They're going to tell someone else, oh, I met someone the other day, she's really into that as well, and connect you to people. Having some of that enthusiasm in your shop window, even capturing it in your face, in images that you're using, when you do show up to something, not showing up like this and just showing up with a bit of oomph behind you, that's enough. We don't need to be fixated on, I think if you're fixated on your shop window trying to get perfection, over-analysing, 7 out of 10 is good enough. It always has been. And it always, well, unless you're maybe a surgeon, 7 out of 10 might not be good enough. But in terms of day-to-day careers and business, 7 out of 10 is good enough.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing for people to remember is that in terms of this kind of shop window, if you're so focused on it being 10 out of 10, then you give yourself no space to move, and you will constantly stand there in your shop window trying to perfect it and not go and achieve the things that you're actually looking to achieve in life. And, that's a similar thing for social media as well, is the fact that, you need to get your message out there. It's not always going to be perfect. If it's, pretty human or authentic, it will connect with people. But then, let it be. It's unless it's your business, it's one of those things where ultimately it's there to kind of add a little element to that shop window. But there is one thing I really want to dig into, Sallee, and that's, you identify as an introvert. And obviously, given the exposure, your expertise, the stages you've stood on, the collaborations and the platforms that you've shared with people, a lot of people would say, well, introverted people can't stand on stage in front of hundreds of people. But actually, I think people are starting to understand now it's not this idea of someone going hiding in the corner and an extrovert stood there jumping around like a maniac. And it's a lot more about energies and how we manage them, what recharges us. So tell us a little bit about your introvert journey.
I'm loving that we can deliver stuff from home because it helps with energy management. But, you know, for me, it's everything I do, it's like biggest bang for your buck. Why do 20 things when you can do one and achieve the same outcome? It's about picking and choosing, prioritizing what you say yes to.
Yeah.
And, you know, for example, I flew over to Milan to deliver a speaking event pre-pandemic, and it cost me about a week beforehand wandering around outside of working hours in a dressing gown with the hood up and going over my talk, videoing myself, making sure, you know, it has to deliver value. That's my thing. You know, if I'm going to do something, if it doesn't positively impact people, this costs me too much to do this. So then after the event, I lost another week doing admin, staying away from people. Just went all Buddhist monk for the week. Like, I cannot speak to anyone. But, you know, physically, it takes such a toll on me to do it.
Yeah.
I've got to pick and choose really carefully.
Yeah, and I suppose there's that thing as well where you really have got, you know, understanding and wiser and more cultured around how to recharge. So I know you've got, you know, your little dog, you've got, you know, access to nature and realizing how powerful that is. So what kind of things do you really kind of anchor into when you're looking to plug yourself back in?
To plug myself back in?
Yes.
I just have to open the laptop. But in terms of unplugging myself,
yeah.
we actually moved to down to Cornwall for a bit this March, and being able to be at a beach after a working day is so valuable to me. And it's like, you know what, maybe I'm not rich in bank account, but I am. We were talking to friends down on the beach the other day, and one of them said this, but it's like, we are so rich in life. Like, look at what we're sitting here looking at. That is, for me, feet in the sand, generally feet in grass, on sand, anything.
Grounded.
Very grounded, a need to ground pronto. And also time with my dog. So, you know, having the kind of upbringing I had, I didn't have a childhood as such. You know, it wasn't fun, there wasn't play.
Yeah.
Having a dog, you know, I rescue French bulldogs, I've been doing it for years. But having that is a way for me to access play. Play is really hard to get to for me. I'm quite serious, quite a deep thinker. You know, rolling around on the floor, speaking in a stupid voice isn't my normal. But the dog allows me to access it instantly. So that's something that's really healthy mentally for me.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't actually think about in terms of being able to, you know, access play as an adult. Because not only do we put barriers up about that it's not an adult thing to do, but there's the challenges of, you know, each of us have our own expression. And like you said, you are kind of looking naturally for efficiency. And that tends to drive away from play, because play doesn't give, you know, it doesn't give statistical effectiveness in a way that's really, really tangible. But it's an incredibly powerful way to kind of cultivate that creativity and really recharge those batteries. And again, you know, I just want to know how much will this half an hour sharing your wisdom, knowledge, you know, take out of you in terms of your energy bank?
No, you're good. I have an hour between this and the next thing, but this morning there was, I think we had 180 sign up for the session, and then this 15 minutes later. But I managed to get outside. I took my shoes off, put my feet in the grass, and just took a moment, because otherwise, if I don't keep up the maintenance of the energy, I will end up crashing and losing the rest of my day, which I can't do. So I think knowing myself has come from not knowing myself.
Yeah. And that's that human approach. And the thing is, you live it every day, and that kind of authenticity runs through into Brandable and Course Today. So obviously, it's very much a human first organization and you're really looking to impact humans on a level to be able to actually take that brand out, but ultimately to live more fulfilling lives. So as we kind of come towards the end of the show, what kind of little bits of knowledge have you picked up along your journey that you'd love our listeners to think about?
I mean, I think that the current Stop Underselling Yourself initiative, I know that you're trying to reach, or you will be reaching 1 million people and encouraging them. This is a goal I set in January. I want to reach and encourage 1 million people to stop underselling themselves because of what I saw last year as fallout from the pandemic with jobs, self-worth, self-confidence being attached to job titles and to roles. It's get out of your own way. Mm-hmm. I mean, essentially, you know, I think by being more self-aware, if you're not that wired that way already, setting out and, you know, setting a goal to say, do you know what, I'm going to have a year of self-awareness and seeing where that takes me. I tend to do year-long goals. So I had my tall year in 2016 where I had a year of saying yes to being tall. And I didn't know what that meant, but I ended up going all over the world doing the most random stuff. It was probably another episode altogether. But saying, you know, what is self-awareness? How am I going to start noticing this stuff before it slams me? And I have to, you know, evolve and figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've spoken about there is self-awareness bridges the gap between you and the version of yourself that's getting in your own way. And actually, if you manage to become more self-aware, you'll end up in that body of that person who's in your way. So you won't be in your way anymore because you'll be connected together instead of two separate entities. And that's the biggest thing where I suppose, especially for a lot of people of our generation and, you know, some of the younger generation as well, our job titles are so, you know, so interwoven into our identity, because a lot of the traditional pillars where we'd be recognized in community or from religion or even, you know, having, you know, families quite early, for a lot of people, the job is your first real community of people. And that can tie you so deeply into that title that it literally becomes more than a badge. It becomes like your internal like processing is, I am this. And so many people will just, you know, they're almost say, I'm just a, I am just a. And that is
even with the language and underselling yourself, you can change someone's perception of you entirely by changing the language you're using. One of the things I recommended on this morning session was the Just Not Sorry Chrome plugin. It highlights all the words in emails that you're sending that are undermining you. And it's almost like when you don't have the awareness, now you've got the awareness, what are you going to do about it? Even teaching this stuff and living and breathing this stuff, I still do it. We're not looking for perfection, we're looking for awareness and noticing. And noticing is really, once you've noticed, you can't unnotice.
Yeah, and that's that kind of, you know, that's the real element where you can then take action because you're becoming more aware.
It's your choice, but at least you know you've got a choice.
Yeah, super stuff. So, Sallee, what is on the horizon? Obviously, you know, the Stop Underselling Yourself, it's big, it's your mission this year. But as we kind of look to the future, you know, what might be that next thing that you're going to tackle? Because you are swashbuckling, you do not mess about.
So I've spent 3 years testing, living it, you know, figuring this stuff out, working with a lot of corporates, individuals on accelerator programs. The last quarter of this year, we're actually launching something which is more one-to-many. Again, looking for that bigger impact, that bigger bang for your buck, and making it more accessible and affordable. It's, you know, not cheap, but making it accessible and affordable for more people to ensure that everyone's kind of thinking in this way about their own career and not wasting time.
Yeah, and it's just a massive. It's a massive investment for yourself for very little in reality, because it's going to be something that serves you throughout the rest of your life, and not just in your career, but it's something you can utilize in every different role that you play. So, I mean, again, Sallee, in this half an hour, there's been some absolutely amazing things. 7 out of 10. The ruler. Think about that 1 centimeter. but measure out to that ambitious 30 centimeters. So many different things that people can take. Where can people find out more about yourself and Brandable & Co?
The website brandableandco.com, and there's also part of our social mission. Stop Underselling Yourself is a pay it forward project. Every year I have 4 pay it forward projects for the business, and we also produce a series of guides. No sales funnels, no email addresses, just hit download, they're yours. But yeah, the guides on Brandable & Co. They've got good feedback. They've been really useful for people, and we'll continue to update them as we go forward.
Yeah, so go and get those, because those are invaluable resources that you can use really in every aspect of your life. And just before we go, Sallee, I just want you to very quickly just point out one purpose-driven project that you're currently working on that people don't know much about.
It's unfortunately, how many people we have? 571,713 people know about it. But, Stop Underselling Yourself is taking a lot of my time. Reaching 1 million people is coming from one human being. My team are working on commercial projects. This is my passion project.
Yeah.
And it now has its own page on the website. It's got a counter. It's showing progress. And we're going to hit the 1 million. And I think maybe October, November.
Oh, no, that's exciting. And when you're kind of looking at strategies for the future, 1 to 1 million is definitely one to many, Sallee. 1 to very many.
On top of the day job.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that is something that that's a legacy to that you're building every single day. So yeah, Sallee, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Been some amazing insights, and just to hear your story, and the journey you've been on has been compelling. It's had its ups and downs, but like you said, you've had that journey. It's made you who you are today, and now you are on a mission. And let's be honest, you're unstoppable. It's going to happen. And
don't jinx me.
Who knows what else you're going to achieve? But yeah, you've got massive support, because what you do is clearly from your experience. You've shaped it, and now you're bringing it to fruition. So yeah, I'm a massive fan. I can hold my hands up and say I'm going to be cheering when you hit that 1 million too.
I'll be cheering when you hit your 1 million as well.
Oh, super. So yeah. Thank you for everyone who's joined us today, and the people who commented, and ultimately, yeah, Sallee's points are incredibly powerful, and we can all take a little bit of learning about what we think about we put in our little shop window. Maybe even occasionally just clean the glass too.
Not little, Lee, not little. Big shop window. We're not doing little. The Underselling Yourself, a little project. No little shop window. No little anything. Just in my shop window.
Yes, in my shop window. There we go. We all do it. Got to look at those minimizations. Don't minimize your impacts. Yes, there we go. No, again, thank you so much, Sallee. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and we'll be back on Monday with another episode.